Hello everyone, I'm back in front of the camera talking to you in England. I'm at the center right now, as you can tell. So I've been back for a few weeks and I've just been trying to decompress and incorporate everything that happened during the recording trip to Germany. Wow, yeah, it seems like every time I make an album, it comes with some kind of drama or dramatic event or experience, and this time was certainly no different. If anything, it was the most nuts time making a record. I really should have known that it would be like that, just based on the past. And I'm not going to go into it. I took a lot of footage, like a ton of footage. I could basically make a feature-length film from how much footage I took, but I'm gonna save it for making it into some kind of long-form video, probably to accompany the release of the record if it ever gets released. I'm sure it will. But I'm saving all of that footage for that. Just suffice it to say that it was interesting and very interesting. Very interesting. So I came back. When I tried to start my car, I discovered that it had officially kicked the bucket, and so I had to scramble to find another car that I could drive. And then I got a cold and I was sneezing and coughing a lot and very tired. And so this week is my first week of feeling kind of, stable and normal me. And I'm just trying to get back to the swing of village life, Dorset life, steady wave center life, and I'm really looking forward to this summer. It's been very nice out lately, with the exception of some very windy, blustery days. Not that those aren't nice, but I have been able to get to the beach when it's been relatively calm and sunny. So spending a lot of time on the beach always helps my mood and helps my sanity, I found. Before I get into the meat of the video for today, I wanted to tell you that I'm having a living funeral this month, April 30th, in London. So if you're interested in the London in-person living funeral, by the way, I haven't done an in-person living funeral for a group in a really long time, and probably like at least over a couple of years. I've done one-on-one ceremonies, but never in England a group one. So this is a kind of a big deal to kick the in-person group living funerals off in London. That's going to be happening. I'll put a link in the description, and I'm gonna put the flyer somewhere right here, right now. Also, speaking of living funerals, I will be doing a training, which I normally do one-on-one, but I experimenting with a cohort model for this training. If you want to learn more about that, I will put a link to some more info in the description here, and I think I have another flyer I can just put somewhere here as well. I also wanted to tell you that I'm about to sign another year lease on the center, which is very exciting. When I started the center, I didn't really have any expectations about how long I would be here or how it would work or anything like that. I still kind of don't. It's one day at a time or 1 year at a time, I guess, since I'm signing a year lease. Just knowing that I'm going to be here for another year, I've started to think about ways that I can spruce it up a bit, because it's been 2 years, almost 2 years now. It'll be 2 years in August, and I'm just starting to notice this is weird, but the roly-polies, or they're called woodlouses, woodlice, they leave stains on the floor, and I don't know if it's like something that they secrete, or if it's like when they die they leave this stain, or if it's poop. I don't know what it is, but I need to repaint. Let me try and show you what I'm talking about. So you kind of have to be up close to notice them, but these are the stains I'm talking about, and they won't wash off. They will only, I think I have to just paint over them. So this kind of thing is all over the place, and it's not holes. Like this is a hole here, so that's paint won't go over that unless I do like 10 layers, but there's just a bunch of spots on the floor, like in the corners and stuff. And basically I want to paint over them. So I'm gonna repaint the floor, hopefully next Monday. I've allocated that time to do that. And I've decided that I'm going to hang some drapery on both sides here. So it'll be hanging from the lower beam here and go down. I'm gonna try to somehow hook it to that hook thing, and then I'm gonna put another hook in this wall so it could be like that. But I was just trying to figure out ways I could infuse some warmth into this space, because even though I do like it to be clean and open and white, I think particularly in the winter months it does tend to feel a little bit cold, both physically and aesthetically. So maybe I'll get another rug as well, and these curtains should help. But I'm gonna repaint the floor. I've already bought the paint. Maybe touch up the walls too, and just give it a little love for the year to come. Anyway, on to today's topic, which is DNRs, or do not resuscitate orders. Do not resuscitate. Do not resuscitate. Do not resuscitate. I had a conversation the other day with someone who works in a hospital on a ward that specializes in getting people off of ventilators and sometimes reviving people as well. She was saying that it can be quite difficult and challenging to bring someone back, to revive someone who is quite sick and frail, because technically that was their wish, was to be revived at all costs. So if the person technically didn't have a DNR, a do not resuscitate order, they, were consenting to be revived and brought back, and oftentimes they would go on to survive a couple weeks or a month or so and then finally die. So these people had not put into writing that they do not wish to be resuscitated and revived. And if that's what people truly want, if they want to be revived at all costs, knowing the risks and potential horrific side effects, quite frankly, and conditions in which they would be living in, then, that's up to them. And if they are cool with the associated costs as well of living on a ventilator or getting off of a ventilator, to each their own. The next morning I opened Instagram, and the first post that I saw was from a person called Nurse Penny Smith. She had posted this meme, this video, funny video. A video can be a meme, right? yeah, a meme-ish video. A video that's supposed to elicit some kind of humor response.
You sure about that? 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 You sure about that?
I also took some screenshots of some comments that were posted on the video. There were a lot of interesting ones. There were a ton of comments because this account is really popular, but if you haven't checked out Nurse Penny Smith's content, I think if you're interested in this channel, you might be interested in her account. So I'll link it below as well. But I'm gonna now read you some comments on this video. Olivia Dolphin says, oh, Donlin, not Dolphin. It's kind of selfish in all honesty. It's pain and suffering to prolong someone's life by what may be a month, where they'll be in a world of hurt and likely not even conscious for the remainder of their life. At that age, they're going to pass inevitably anyways. We don't live forever, regardless of medical intervention. The least we can do as a loved one is to allow the people we love to pass with dignity, peace, and on their own accord. Debs7143 says, I had to work on a resident for over 20 minutes because he didn't have a DNR in place. Absolutely horrendous. Emoji that's crying. He was already gone. Nurse Ashton6 says, OMG, I had a 103-year-old patient the other night, full code. Danielle, the okayest mom, says, going through this now with my grandpa. He's 94 and we have a DNR in place, but my uncles want him to be resuscitated to a point. My mom, her sister, and I are like, what the actual F are you thinking? I'm hoping he goes in his sleep soon and we don't have to have this fight. All of this to say, DNRs were on my mind and I thought maybe I could make a video about DNRs for you. Firstly, I want to say that I'm going to be talking about laws in the UK where I live. And if you want to know more about DNRs where you live, in the state or country that you live in, I would highly recommend just a quick internet search with your location, and that will hopefully tell you all you need to know about DNRs where you are living. I am going to read you the definition of DNR right now. A do not resuscitate order, also known as do not attempt resuscitation, do not attempt cardiopulmonary resuscitation, no code, or allow natural death, is a medical order, written or oral, depending on country, indicating that a person should not receive cardiopulmonary resuscitation if that person's heart stops beating. So normally, if a person is relatively healthy, young, expected to live a long and fulfilling life ahead, they will not have a DNR in place because, you know, the risk of dying is greater than the risk that is imposed by receiving life-saving techniques such as CPR or being intubated. And yes, I'm aware that fulfilling is like a judgment word. How can you tell a person whether or not their life is fulfilling? You know, even if they're in a hospital bed, they can't move, they can't speak. That person very well may want to live that life and have every intervention possible to help them live longer. But some people just don't wish for that. And one question I did have when I started my death doula journey was, can one even have a DNR if one is healthy and young and all of these qualifiers? Can I, as a person, can anyone have a DNR order put in place if we do not wish to be resuscitated? Or is that only for people who are sort of expected to suffer from these events soon-ish? The answer to that question is yes, everyone has the ability to put a DNR in place. It does have to be signed off by a medical professional, a person's doctor, but anyone, you and me, we can all have a DNR if we wish. This is a choice we can make at any time to instruct medical professionals that we do not wish for them to intervene. We do not wish to receive CPR if our heart stops. I think that many people know what CPR is, and many people now know what intubation is, especially after COVID-19 and all the talk about intubation and all the folks who had to be intubated when they were having respiratory failure and things like that. but not many of us are truly well versed in the potential risks and side effects that CPR in particular poses, or intubation, or any life-saving techniques or interventions pose to the human body. I urge everyone with a human body to do their own research about CPR and other life-saving interventions, just so that you know what it entails, the side effects, the implications, just so that you could get a well-rounded view of what exactly, I mean, of course there are variables that we can't know 100%, but just to have the most information as possible so you can make an informed decision. So if I, a relatively healthy, expecting to live a long life person, wants to put a DNR order in place, I'm able to do that, and I'm also able to make more specific requests or instructions in my advance directive or my advance decision. In an advance directive, you're able to go over, different scenarios, different events, different specific life-saving measures that you do or do not want. Or you can say, I want to be intubated, but after this amount of time, I want to be taken off a ventilator. You have the power to advocate for yourself in your advance directive and tell people what your wishes are. So if you don't want CPR, if you do want CPR under these circumstances, you're able to do that. And you're also able, obviously, to amend this document over the course of your life. And it's wise to let your loved ones or people close to you know about your wishes, particularly if you are younger or healthy or expected to live a long and healthy life, because these conversations aren't as common during those phases of life, and therefore people don't really ask you questions about what your wishes are and that kind of thing. So if it's important to you to have these wishes, to retain that autonomy over your body if XYZ happens to you, then I would definitely sit down with some close ones and let them know what you're thinking and what your wishes are, and also let them know where your documents are. What I didn't know until fairly recently was that a doctor or medical team does not need consent from the patient or their family in order to put a DNR in place. This means that a doctor can put a DNR in place for you even if you don't consent to it. If you don't want a DNR, a doctor can override that and say you have a DNR. The law instead limits the use of DNRs in certain circumstances. And it does give patients a right in that decision-making process, even though it's not giving them the right to the final decision or the final word on the matter. How can that be? How can a doctor say to a person, sorry, I know you want to be resuscitated, but we're not gonna do that. Sorry. Had to put a new battery in. Where was I? Okay, so how can this be? We can frame it in a slightly different way to help us understand why the law is the way it is. Basically, a patient has no right to demand CPR if it's in the doctor's professional opinion that CPR would not be successful in saving their life, or it would not be in the patient's best interests, in their opinion, to administer CPR or another life-saving technique. I suppose this is going along the lines of like what a doctor's mission is, which is do no harm. It's difficult. To me, it's sort of a gray area because someone was taking a picture of the man on the door. To me, it's sort of a gray area because while I 100% advocate for a patient's rights, a person's rights, specifically at their end of life, it's a gray area, right? Because if a doctor is saying this is going to be traumatic for you, this won't even work, it won't be successful, I don't know. I don't know if it's right or wrong. It's a hard call for me to make. But I think that from my understanding and from the stories that I've heard, that's a pretty extreme situation to happen. I don't know. If you have had a different experience, let me know. But from what I've heard, pretty much people are administered CPR and life-saving techniques a lot of the time, and to a lot of the time to the detriment of the patient. So what if the person does not have the capacity to make this decision at the time of it needing to be made? If someone in that situation does not have the capacity and they haven't made their wishes clear in their advance directive or their advance decision, then it goes on to the next of kin to help inform the medical staff of maybe what they would have wanted. Depending on the situation, the medical staff will usually opt to try to revive the person. That's just based on the stories that I've heard and the different situations and scenarios I've heard about. But again, if you have had a different experience, please leave a comment or email me. So this next part I'm gonna read because it's from the NHS website, and it's a little bit long-winded, so I'm just gonna read it for you. There are 3 main circumstances in which the law allows DNR decisions to be made. Number 1, where a patient with capacity asks not to be resuscitated. This must be respected and a DNR order implemented to alert all healthcare professionals not to attempt resuscitation. You can request a DNR order at any time. I forgot to say though, I'm pretty sure that if a person doesn't agree with the doctor about not having a DNR, I think that the doctor has to get the patient a second opinion so that it's more of a conversation and more of a decision amongst all of them. And just a note on if you do have a DNR, make sure that it's very close to your person, your body. I know some people put it on like their headboard of their bed in case their heart stops in the middle of the night. Basically, you want it to be very visible to people if like emergency services are brought in, because if they don't immediately see it or are not told immediately where it is, they will start to resuscitate you. That's just like a given thing that they will do if someone's not there to say, here's a DNR, this person has DNR, or if it's like on their body or very near them. Obviously the EMS or EMT crew, what's EMS? I think EMS has something to do with like ghosts. That's EMF. Anyway, EMTs, when the EMTs come, they're gonna immediately jump to CPR, how do I save this person, unless the DNR is very close to the person or someone with the person knows where the DNR is and can go grab it and prove with the doctor's signature and everything that the DNR is in place so that the EMTs won't do anything out of line. If your DNR is important to you, then make sure people know where it is, make sure that it's nearby to you, it's visible, because how heartbreaking would it be to be having CPR if that's something that was expressly against your wishes and you've gone out of your way to put a DNR in place and people have barged into your home and they're trying to resuscitate you all of a sudden. All right, back to the circumstances in which the law allows DNR decisions to be made. Number 2 is where a doctor considers that resuscitation is likely to be futile, i.e., in their medical opinion, CPR will not work. Number 3, where a doctor considers, having had full consultation with the patient, that the burden of CPR outweighs the benefit to the patient, i.e., that CPR may restart the heart and breathing, but the patient is likely to be left with a poor quality of life. And again, what is poor quality of life? It differs person by person. Everyone has a different opinion about what a poor quality or a good quality of life is. Then states that all decisions should be made on an individual basis and there should be no blanket policies dictating the use of DNRs. Well, that's good. Now we're going to talk about what the process is like putting a DNR in place, and this is from a website as well. I think the NHS website. Gosh, I should have written that down. The law requires the following process, and those close to the patient should be involved unless the patient has asked for them not to be. If a patient is likely to stop breathing or their heart stop, they should be made aware that a DNR decision may be appropriate and that this will not affect other treatment decisions. The patient should have access to clear information about what DNR decisions are and how the decisions are made. If a patient does not want to discuss the matter further but wants to leave the matter in the hands of their doctors, this can be confirmed at this early stage and it will be documented in your medical records. The patient should then have a chance to have a full discussion with the doctor who shall make the DNR decision so they can express their views and listen to the expert medical opinion of their doctor. The doctor should then make a decision and communicate this to the patient, explaining to them clearly the reasons for the decision. If the patient disagrees with the decision, the doctor should, as a matter of good practice, offer to arrange a second opinion. The only circumstance in which a patient may be excluded from the process is if their doctor reasonably considers involving them would cause them psychological harm. For instance, severe mental distress over and above that which all of us would suffer when discussing end-of-life care. So that's a little bit about do not resuscitate orders or DNRs. Have you heard of a DNR? Do you have a DNR? Would you like a DNR? Well, if I've missed anything in this video that you want to comment down below, please don't be shy. Just be kind. Don't be shy, but be kind, please. I would appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in again, and I'll see you next time. Bye.